told him about it.
I wonder if it's because I
forget to
put my jump drive back in.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you all to the December 14th, 2016 meeting of the Ascension Parish Planning Commission. I'd like to ask everybody to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll note that all members except Mr. Foster, who is traveling tonight, are present, and a very special happy birthday to Mr. Chasson, one of our newer members. Staff, could you please give us your introductions?
Stacy Webb, Secretary for Planning and Development.
Cody Martin, the attorney for the Planning Commission.
Jerome Fournier, Director of Planning and Development.
Eric Poche, planner.
Lance Brock, zoning official. Sean Chereau, engineer reviewing agency.
Joey Tugro, chief engineer.
Thank you, gentlemen and lady. All right, moving on to the chairman's comments. I wanted to take a few minutes because over the Thanksgiving holiday, I received an email from a concerned citizen that I'll read it so I don't misquote anything. And I wanted to take this opportunity to respond to it because it's something that we hear quite frequently. The subject matter was slow down the subdivisions being built. And it's addressed, Matt Pryor, your actions on the Planning Commission are showing signs of being Matassa's puppet to allow all subdivisions to be built. Remember, you're the chairman of said commission. Your forwardness needs to be for Ascension Parish, not for the good old boy who helped get you in that position. I won't read the name of the person who authored that because I don't have his permission. But we do get a lot of subdivisions and a lot of other development that come before us. And it's always been my belief, and I think most of the beliefs of my fellow commissioners, that we have a very limited role in looking at these subdivisions. And that being that if they meet the legal requirements that are set forth by our elected body, i.e. the parish council, that unless there's some compelling evidence provided to the contrary, we don't have much of a choice in whether we approve them or deny those developments, subdivisions included. Earlier this year, and it's been a topic of conversation, the parish sought an opinion from the Attorney General, which came out on May 10th of 2016. And this opinion, which I have with me today, has to be reviewed in its entirety because you can parse things out of this opinion to get to whatever conclusion you want. For example, on page 2 of the opinion, the Assistant Attorney General who wrote the opinion said, accordingly, pursuant to Louisiana Revised Statute 33101.1, the Planning Commission is granted authority to deny an application seeking approval of a subdivision when the plat meets all statutory and regulatory requirements. And that's certainly what the statute says. And if you just take that sentence, it would seem that this body would have great authority and discretion in reviewing subdivisions and seeking to apply the law at our whim. But such is not the case because the next 3 pages of the opinion detail in great detail the jurisprudence, the litigation that is ensued over that statute, and quoted the courts of our state who define what the law is. And specifically, there was a case out of the Second Circuit, which is up in the northern part of the state, DeArgent Properties versus City of Shreveport. And the court said there that when an owner seeks a use by right in compliance with the applicable zoning, conforming to every modification imposed and approved by the commission, the use of right should be presumptively valid and approved. For the council to deny such a use, the burden is on the city is much higher. On judicial review, the council's decision to deny use by right is subject to strict scrutiny, not the normal standard of broad discretion applied to various cases. And what that means is that if we are presented with a development, a subdivision, or whatever the development is, if it meets the legal requirements that the parish council set forth and that's codified in the Land Development Code, then it is presumptively valid. And there must be compelling evidence as to its effect on the health, safety, and welfare of the general public. The Attorney General concluded in just that opinion, saying, accordingly, the standard of review that will be applied by a court on judicial review of denial of an application seeking approval of a subdivision when the plan meets all statutory and regulatory requirements is strict scrutiny. In reviewing a land use decision, the issue is whether the governing body acted arbitrarily, capriciously, or without any calculated or prejudicial lack of discretion when applications are granted in similar situations and refused in others. The refusal to grant an application may constitute a non-uniform application of the zoning ordinances that is arbitrary and capricious. To determine if the decision of the Planning Commission or governing authority is valid, the court will examine whether the decision bears so little relationship to the public health, safety, or general welfare so as to render it arbitrary or capricious. And I think that sums up what I've said on that. Now, there are people that want us to, without saying so, impose a moratorium by simply denying subdivisions that come before us. And there are those, and I think that's a minority view. They use the context of lack of infrastructure as a pretext to get to that mission. I think there's a lot of other people, though, that are genuinely concerned about the growth in Ascension Parish and the lack of infrastructure there too, specifically when it deals with roads and drainage. And to those people, in fact, somebody asked me the other day at lunch, well, what do you do? And I say, well, we have to follow the law. The law, if the law needs to be changed to slow down growth, that is a decision of the parish council. But more importantly, it should spark a debate with our elected officials, whether it be on a state level, a local level with the parish, or on a federal level, as to how we address these needs. Because infrastructure is something that has plagued this parish for a number of years. It's actually plagued the state for a number of years. And until that becomes a legislative priority on the federal, state, and local level, where our elected officials choose to use our tax money dedicated for roads to actually improve the roads and drainage, we'll never get anything solved. And it's up to our legislative bodies to do that. I mean, you look at any area that we drive through. Of course, I-10 cuts right through Ascension Parish, and it goes into the capital city. Over this week, over the Thanksgiving holiday, I had the opportunity to travel up north outside of Philadelphia, and we drove through Birmingham, Alabama, and Knoxville, Tennessee. Two cities which are smaller than Baton Rouge, but the interstate and transportation system going through both of them are wide open. 4 lanes in each direction, a loop around each city. Baton Rouge, which is a larger city on an interstate that connects one coast to the other and is our capital city, cannot boast of that. It was just recently that we got a 3rd lane that started on the other side of the parish line and doesn't even go to the western border of the parish. In all honesty, the interstate needs to be widened. And it's true that Congressman Graves has brought money to widen it to 73, but it needs to be widened all the way from New Orleans and probably to the other side of Iberville Parish, to the western edge of Iberville Parish. And that goes for our public roads too. Just today, as a matter of fact, there was an article in the Hayride about roads and how we're going to pay for roads. The article starts out like this, and this sounds like a John Kennedy political commercial. Louisiana roads suck. We've known this for decades, but now there's a growing desire to fix them, or, well, at least raise more money in the name of fixing them. It's a recognized fact. But until it becomes a legislative priority in our legislature, in Congress, and with the parish government to fix these roads, we're going to be beating our heads against the door. But it's the legislature that is charged with doing it. On a state and local level, there can be no more important item for the government to do, that they must do. And I'm not talking about social programs that governments want to do, because all governments want to do these big social programs, but programs that they must do is first address infrastructure, particularly when police and other law enforcement and safety organizations are separated or taxed separately. They must address these issues. So to those people who come to us to have us stop the growth in our community, I would join you and say, let's go and hold our elected officials accountable for bringing more money and using our taxpayer money to improve the infrastructure here. And I've talked to a lot of people who say, yeah, that can't be done. There's just not enough money. It can be done. It's been done in this parish. The school board is a shining example of a public body that has seen growth coming, saw that they were behind the growth curve, and developed an economic and efficient plan without raising a dime of taxpayer dollars to build new schools to accommodate the growth and even plan for the future with a future high school. Our sheriff's department has done it, going from a rural sheriff's department to one of the most advanced law enforcement departments in the country or in the state. And believe it or not, it's happening in public industry. Just this last week, St. Elizabeth Hospital was awarded an Excellence Award for healthcare that no other hospital in Louisiana has ever received. I'm sure many of you who've been in Ascension Parish for a long time can remember when you had a healthcare care issue, you didn't stay in Ascension Parish. You went to Baton Rouge or New Orleans. Now you'd be foolish to not go, stay right here and go to the facilities that we have. It can be done, but it must be a legislative priority. This is a great place to live. It's a great place for business. All the signs are pointing to that, and our elected officials need to address that and accommodate that growth. So to the people who want us to usurp our powers that we don't have, to exert powers that we don't have, to deny subdivisions, I don't disagree that growth is a problem, but the solution does not lie in this appointed body. Moving on from that, we're going to get to the general business. Item 7 on the agenda is approval or denial of the minutes and the written decisions of the November 9th, 2016 Planning Commission meeting. Do I have a motion to approve or not
I'll
approve?
make that motion.
Mr. Dudley moves to approve, second.
Second.
By Mr. Chasson, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Nearing no opposition, the motion passes. Item number 8 is the consent agenda. There are 3 items on the consent agenda. Item 8D has been pulled off. Item 8A is affidavit of mortgage declaration for Adam Fox, lot LG2A2, 12021 Laurel Ridge Road in Sanama. Item 8B is the affidavit of mortgage declaration for Donald W. Dykes and Pamela L. Dykes, lot A1, 42540 Norwood Road, Gonzales, Louisiana. And 8C is the affidavit of mortgage declaration for Charles S. Schroll, S-C-H-R-O-L-L, lot C and D, 13087 Roddy Road, Gonzales, Louisiana. Can I get a motion on these consent agenda items or any discussion?
So move. I've got a question.
Okay,
On 8D, on the,
that's been pulled from the agenda.
okay,
8D is not up for consideration tonight.
okay, thank you.
So we have a motion by Mr. Dumas on 8A through C, second by Mr. Bishop. All in favor?
Aye.
Any in opposition? Hearing none, the motion passes. Item 9 on the agenda, public hearing to approve or deny the following family partition. The Virgil Burke the third property, lots A and B, Willard Quitmont, surveyors. Mr. Quitmont, Mr. Clint Quitmont at the podium.
Thank you. I'm asking for planning commission approval for the Virgil J. Burke property, family partition. All the comments have been addressed. There is one particular item, which is the private access servitude between the mobile home and the storage building. If we get approval today, we will go to the Board of Adjustments and ask for a reduction in that building setback just in that location. So we are addressing that and working with the planning department on taking the next step to the Board of Adjustments for that particular item.
Just to be clear, you're asking for approval subject to the Board of Adjustments granting that variance?
That is correct.
Staff comments?
As Mr. Quintmont said, all the comments have been adjusted, save that one. He and I discussed it before the meeting, where he let me know that he was going to request a variance on that. So that would be our recommendation, to approve contingent on that taking place.
We'll go ahead and open a public hearing on this matter. Has anyone signed up to speak on this? All right, we'll close the public hearing. Just let me step aside for a second. If you came to speak on any issue and be heard, you have to sign a card. And if you do sign the card, you will get the opportunity to speak. We're going to limit the comments to 3 minutes. We have a little crowd tonight, so we want to keep things moving along. Mr. Quitmont just held up the cards. Thank you very much. All right, we'll close the public hearing. Any comments or questions by the commission, or do we have a motion?
Just a quick question. Hey, Clint, is that building, it's on a slab?
No,
It's not
no.
movable?
It's an older type building. I mean, worst case scenario, if the board, the Board of Adjustment doesn't grant us just in that location, it's just used for storage purposes, so it's not a residence, but I don't know if it's really could it be? Yes. It's not, but it's not a small building, and it's one of the older
Oh, it's, okay,
type building. I think would be pretty difficult.
all right. Okay.
I had a question. The document that we received said that the staff reviewed and approved, the lending institution was notified, but that the planning department has not received a response. But the last page of the packet that we had is a letter from the mortgage company objecting to the subdivision. Am I missing something here, or is that?
I think that's item D on the consent agenda that was removed.
Okay, I'm I'm sorry, maybe it was looking at the wrong one.
There's no
Okay.
mortgage on this property.
Never mind, I was looking at the wrong one.
Not a
Sorry.
problem.
Thanks.
Do we have a motion on this?
We approve the partition.
I think Mr. Christie beat you to it, so a motion by.
Christie, go ahead.
Make a motion to approve.
Just to be clear, it's subject to the variance.
Yeah.
Okay.
A motion by Mr. Christie to approve, subject to the variance being granted by the Board of Adjustments. Do we have a second on that?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Chasson. All in favor?
Aye.
Any in opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. Item number 9B, the George Babin property, lots B3, 4A, and B3, 4B. Mr. Quitmont?
Yes, all comments have been adjusted. Mostly were just lot designations and stuff like that. The existing 15-foot drainage servitude has been put on the east side of the property, as per the comments.
Staff?
Yes, as long as the comments have been addressed, we don't have any objection if you choose to approve it.
We'll go ahead and open a public hearing on this, and if anybody signed up to speak, we'll close the public hearing. Any comments, questions, or a motion by the commission?
I move to approve.
Moved by Mr. Dumas to approve the petition. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Dudley. All in favor?
Aye.
Any in opposition? Hearing none, the motion passes. Item number 9C, the Wilbur LeBlanc Tanner property, lots A, B, and C, McGlynn Taylor Incorporated. Thank you, Mr. Quimall.
Ellen Jackson with McLean Taylor Incorporated, asking for your approval. There were some comments. They have been addressed.
Staff?
Yes, all comments have been addressed, and our analysis is that it meets all of our requirements, and we have been satisfied.
We'll go ahead and open a public hearing. Has anybody signed up to speak? Nobody signed up to speak. We'll close the public hearing. Questions or comments or a motion by the commission?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Chasson. Do I have a second?
So moved.
By Mr. Dumas. All in favor?
Aye.
Any in opposition? Hearing none, the family partition passes. Thank you, ma'am. All right, moving on to item number 10 on the agenda, the public hearing to approve or deny the following mobile home parks. Item 10A, Family Court Mobile Home Park Expansion, B.M. Aguilar and Associates. This is in Council District 10. Yes, sir. Please
Brian
state your
Ag-
name for us.
Brian Aguilar, BM Aguilar and Associates, representing Family Court at Trailer Park Extension. Pretty sure all the comments have been addressed, and we're asking for your approval on the extension of the trailer park.
Staff?
Yes, sir. All the comments have been addressed to our satisfaction. If there are any questions, I'm sure Mr. Shiro can answer them as far as the drainage and traffic. One thing that I would like to make note of is that on the site plan, this being a non-conforming use, there's a one-time expansion of 50% based on the footprint of the existing park and infrastructure. That was measured, and they do come below that 50% for the expansion. The applicant is also asking or requesting a waiver from the required 1.5-inch asphalt surface on the entry street and 8.5-inch soil cement base to use 8-inch thick concrete for the access drive. So that would be approved with the site plan should you choose to approve it.
So what you're saying is it meets the standards?
Exceeds.
Exceeds the standards
Yes.
set forth. Okay. Engineering, Mr. Siro, can you comment on any engineering issues that may be available?
No, the first item, drainage, this project addressed the Ascension Parish ordinance addressing both detention, runoff, and fill mitigation. And when it comes to traffic, their peak hour number of trips for this type of development was 11, which warrants the lowest threshold level per Ascension Parish traffic policy, which basically just requires them to analyze site distance. So they have addressed all your impact study and policy requirements.
Thank you, sir. We'll go ahead and open a public hearing on this. Has anyone signed up to speak?
Matt Madare.
Mr. Madare.
Yes, currently with the trailer park that's existing as it is, we already have people trespassing into our private gated subdivision. As it is, there's no existing fence partitioning off his trailer park. and he wants to expand it even bigger. Brings up safety issues. Our subdivision is for 30 lots. Everybody back there is between $400,000 to $550,000 homes. We've got a lot invested back there, and we're not looking to affect our property values we already have back there. And as I said, we've got safety concerns with the trespassing that already takes place, and he's looking to expand it even more than it already is. And that's about it.
What subdivision are you in, sir?
It's butting up to Cessna Street gated community. And he's already started moving in trailers in his unapproved expanded section. And we can already see where he's run electricity to new trailers that have been moved in. And this hasn't even been approved yet. So it just looks a little fishy to everybody in the community, as it is. And like I said, it hadn't even been approved yet. And these are the things he's already doing. So it's raised a bunch of red flags to the subdivision. That's all.
Thank you, sir. Has anybody else signed up to speak?
Brian Kleber.
I'm kind of convinced that the proposed extension does not abide by the current regulations of the Unified Land Development Code. According to the LDC, non-conforming land use may be expanded by no more than 50% of the original non-conforming site. You know, it says non-conforming site, and currently there's 23 mobile homes in that in the park now, and they want to increase it by an additional 19. Also, in Appendix 8 of the LDC, which is specific to mobile home park regulations, in Section 178097, which is for non-conforming use and structures, paragraph C1, first sentence states that no mobile home park shall be altered, extended, or constructed after the day of enactment of this ordinance without complying with the procedures and regulations of this ordinance. And it doesn't say that any extended portion has to meet the regulations. It says any park. Therefore, you know, for this expansion to occur, it would have to, the whole park would have to abide by the current ordinances in the LDC. And some of the things that are lacking for that to happen, according to the LDC, is that they don't have 200 feet on a publicly maintained road frontage on a publicly maintained road, and there's a couple of other small issues also. They currently have 131.39 feet on that road, along with some on the existing access there. They don't meet the 50-foot access servitude requirements, and the drainage that's proposed to drain the site drains into an existing pond that is on their property, but that pond has been halfway filled in with construction debris, and from there the outfall is supposed to go into a ditch that is on their property, which is, according to the LDC, is supposed to be required to be disposed of in a publicly maintained ditch.
Leonard Smith.
Before we get to Mr. Smith, I want to ask legal about that. The expansion of the non-conforming use, does it have to then make the whole park conform in order to expand it?
Refer to Lance, he knows a whole lot more about it.
No, sir, just the part that's being expanded needs to meet the requirements that are in place today.
What does the code say on that?
The code states that what's existing is non-conforming. The new part, or the part that's being expanded, needs to meet the requirements that are in place in the code underneath mobile home parks.
Do you have the code with you?
I've got it. I'd like to read. What section is that, Lance? You give us the site that you were quoting from.
Yeah, that's, it's in section 17-8097 and paragraph C1. Nowhere does it state that the extended, altered, or constructed portion specifically has to mean, it says no mobile home park can be altered, extended, or constructed without meeting the regulations of this ordinance. And like I said, it can't meet the regulations without having the 200 feet on a publicly maintained street, a road frontage, the drainage into a publicly maintained ditch.
So item 178097A1 says certain mobile home parks may be found in existence at the time of the passage of these regulations which are in conflict or incompatible with the requirements set forth herein. Is the intent of this ordinance that mobile home parks shall hereafter comply with the following minimum requirements to ensure and protect the health, safety, and general welfare of the public. And then C1, there's no C2, says, no mobile home park shall be altered, extended, or constructed after the day of enactment of this ordinance without complying with all the procedures and regulations of this ordinance. Failure to comply shall subject the owner to a penalty as defined herein. I mean, it would seem to argue, and Lance, you can correct me if I'm wrong, and Cody, certainly, you can weigh in on this, that the ordinance recognizes a pre-existing non-conforming mobile home park, but then doesn't limit it, doesn't say that in C1 that just the new, it says no mobile home park shall be altered, extended, or construction after the day enactment of this ordinance without complying with the procedures and regulations in this ordinance. I mean, I think a good argument could be made that the only way that applies to the extension only is if the expansion is deemed to be a separate mobile home park, which it doesn't sound like it is because they're asking for an expansion of the existing mobile home park.
And I would tend to agree with your analysis of those provisions. But I'd also tell you that under the code, Lance is the interpreter, the code interpreter for the parish. So I'll defer to him under what he wants his interpretation to be of those statutes.
Well, I mean, I think a good argument is clearly made. It can be made that in order to expand, let me ask you this, Lance, what's non-conforming about the mobile home park that's in existence right there?
The use of the mobile home park being in a district that is not allowed in, meaning that it's in I think it's in either rural or RM district.
So it's
The
not
mobile home-
zoned properly
Correct.
for that?
Yes.
There's no other non-conforming aspect of that park other than the zoning?
Correct, yes.
But Lance, there are technical requirements for a mobile home park that it also doesn't apply for. So there are actual physical deficiencies as well, right?
Of this park?
No, of what the code requires. The code requires frontage, it requires certain other aspects for all
Yes.
mobile home parks.
Yes, for new mobile home parks, yes.
Well, but again, you go back to that provision of the code, it says that no existing mobile home park, no mobile home park could be expanded unless it complies with the regulations. So there's
Two parts
essentially
of it.
two deficiencies, one the zoning, and the other one is the deficiencies to the compliance with the code,
Yes.
correct?
Yes,
And,
sir.
and let me ask you this, if there's a deficiency in zoning, and it says that no mobile home park shall be expanded except in accordance with these and it's already outside the zone, then that would put put the code in conflict where it says you could have an expansion
Non-conforming, yes.
of a non-conforming. When that article was drafted, did they mean non-conforming in terms of zoning?
No,
or
sir,
other
no.
Or
No.
do you know, or do we know?
I don't know, but I would think that it wasn't in relationship to a zoning when that was placed in.
It was in relationship to just the technical standards?
Just the technical standards or the standards of them. Actually, there's 2 standards in there, so yes.
Right. So, but let me, okay, so let me change direction here. You know, you made a calculation, okay? You know, typically when you calculate for non-conforming, you look at the use, the size of the use. Correct. In this case, you used the amount of real estate, but in reality, the use here is the number 23. And if you can expand it by 50%, in theory, you could add 11 and a half more trailers, or round it up to 12, not 19.
We don't look at it from spots. We don't look at it from that. We look at it as the land, the non-conforming use of the land, not the number of spots.
So let me give you a for instance here. So if I have a restaurant that has 10,000 square feet, and I have non-conforming use, and I choose to make it bigger, you're going to look at the size of my lot, and you're going to allow me to make my restaurant 25,000 square feet.
No, sir, that's a building, so it's in there in the building, but this is the lot.
But these are units.
Yeah, but I understand, but it's the amount of property that is being utilized as non-conforming. That's how it's been done.
Yeah.
And that's how it's been interpreted. I went to the Board of Adjustments with an interpretation, and that's how they did it also.
Okay.
They actually allowed the pond and everything to be included in the non-conforming standard.
Let's talk about the pond. What about the allegation that it's got debris in it? Have we done a site inspection?
I would have to refer to Sean.
Okay.
Site inspections of the existing pond is not a part of the review. I mean, our review is to see if this pond, as proposed by the engineer, that based on the information they provide to us, will it provide the storage detention that's needed to satisfy the ordinance? So what debris are in the water, what's in there, that's nothing. I mean, we're relying on the engineers to tell us, will that address detention? That's the only thing that we're looking at.
Mr. Chair, I think we should finish the public hearing.
I agree, yes. Okay, who's next on the list of?
Leonard Smith.
And the first 2 I didn't ask is, but please state your name and address for the record, and if you live by this, give us an idea of where you live relative to the trailer park or whatever issue we have up here. Mr. Smith.
Thank you for seeing me. I live at 10369 Buddy Gore Road. That's the adjacent subdivision that several of us are here about. One of the items that was just brought before y'all by Mr. Kleber was the fact that there are 23 of these trailers in this small-sized mobile home park that has pretty well degraded down the wrong path, in our opinion, in terms of, you know, abandoned cars and trash and whatnot. He wants to expand this onto an adjacent piece of property, from what I'm understanding from listening here, and expand it, but he doesn't want to bring the existing one up to code. Is that what I'm understanding from everyone here? Up to current code, I mean, for a mobile home park. And that's correct? That's what he's looking to get approved
The
here, correct?
expansion meets the
Okay.
current code requirements.
Okay, so
From
only...
from the construction and maintenance standpoint, at least that's what staff's telling, not from a zoning standpoint.
Okay. So he's looking to expand it, how many units from what I understand?
Well, it's 19, based on what Lance said. If you look at the infrastructure that's existing with the existing mobile home park, you look at the drives, the lots where the mobile homes are, any infrastructure as far as the sewer treatment plant, the pond for the detention and whatnot. Out of the 18 acres, there was a calculation of, I believe, 13 and a half acres, and the expansion is going to be 4 point some odd acres. And in looking with that falls below the 50% threshold. So, according to the
But
code,
he's
that's
increasing from 23, he's going to put 19 more.
correct.
But y'all say you don't read it that way.
Not on the number of units, no, sir.
Okay. Those are the questions that I had. That and the drainage, especially the pond that they're referring to. If we're going to drain all of these new 19 units into this little pond, I mean, engineering approves that? That seems to be okay?
That's
I drive by that pond every day, I can tell you. I wouldn't want to smell it. You know, I mean, that's how we all get into the neighborhood. Just things that I wanted to bring up and make sure. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Next, next person,
Shane Wagasback.
Mr. Wagsback.
Shane Wagasback, 10543 Buddy Gore Road. I live just to the south of the proposed mobile home park. So I have two questions on the mobile park expansion. A, Family Court Mobile Home Park Site Expansion Plan, paragraph 2. You'll see on there's a 6-foot solid fence will be provided along the western and southern boundary. But if you look over the plot map, he also has one on here on the eastern side of which is where we drive in to our neighborhood. So which one is the overriding requirement here? Is it the statement in the paragraph, or is it the plat map? What would be required there if he has it on a plat map but does not state it in the paragraph as stated?
Or it's in the paragraph but not on the map?
That is, well, it's on the map, not in the paragraph. So you've already heard the issues we've had with trespassers and people coming in our neighborhood, and this is something that could potentially, eliminate. And then my second question would be, on the proposed plot of land, is that a proposal to rezone that piece of property?
I don't think that there's a zoning issue
No.
coming before we're gonna do zoning after this. I didn't see zoning on this to rezone that, so, no,
No, it's
the
not.
expansion would be a non-conforming zoning use.
Okay,
Correct.
well, what about the plot map versus this paragraph? Which one is the requirement?
I'm sorry, could you,
What paragraph are you referring to?
So if you look at the Family Home Park Expansion A, you look at the second paragraph about halfway down, it states, a 6-foot solid fence will be provided along the western and southern boundary of the addition. Does not say anything about the eastern boundary in this paragraph, but if you look at the plat map, it shows one on the eastern boundary. So is the requirement that it's on the eastern boundary?
the requirement is gonna be that the fence will need to be placed on whatever boundary the expansion is including. And that if it's not legible on the map, then it's gonna be taken care of in the construction document review phase.
So in English terms, you're basically saying he's got to put it on the eastern part?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Who's next? Is that it? Okay. Does anybody else came to speak on this? Are you the developer? Yeah. You get to come back up. I'm just gonna close the public hearing right now. Okay. All right. Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna give you an opportunity to respond to those things.
Brian Aguilar again, going to address a few of these comments. I tend to disagree with the gentleman that said that the existing ditch that we're discharging to is not a public drainage servitude. The ditch has, it may not be contained in a public drainage servitude, but any ditch in the parish that has off-site runoff through it is considered public drainage. Is that correct, John?
I just, maybe Cody would be better on that, but I just know state law, you're bound to, you can't impede or block drainage from the adjacent property owner that's draining through you. So I don't know if there's a dedicated servitude, it's not public, but it is serving needs beyond your property, so it would have to be maintained at least by the property owner.
We could easily dedicate this servitude for the drainage. Another comment was we don't have the road frontage. Currently, Mr. Kluot owns the adjacent lot in another, which is in another parcel. That lot could easily be combined with this lot to give the minimum 200-foot frontage.
I don't think you're gonna be able to do that because this is a non-conforming zoning issue. So you can't take something out of something that's zoned already and move it in to make it conforming.
Right.
And Lance will kind of explain that better as far as, you know, the inconsistencies between the codes as far as the non-conforming use as it relates to zoning and then as it relates to the regulations in the land development code.
I think you were asked to explain that better.
Well, you just got to.
Not to put you on the spot.
That's okay, I'm fine.
You have two sets.
Yeah, there's two sets. So basically, there's non-conforming underneath the zoning, which, to me, this is what this falls into, his expansion. And then the other part is something that was written prior to zoning coming into effect. To me, it's basically, this is he's expanding a non-conforming, and underneath the non-conforming, he can expand up to 50%.
It's non-conforming under there's two avenues of
The use,
non-conforming.
yes.
And when the statute was drafted, they didn't take into account the zoning problem.
Correct, yes, sir.
But what we're in essence being asked to do is expand a pre-existing non-conforming use that doesn't fit into the zoning there and making it more of an impact into that misaligned zoning.
Yes, allowed underneath the non-conforming use. Yes, sir, it's permitted, it's allowed.
What I find more troubling is that you also have nonconformities with the land development code. And I don't know that either provision trumps the other provision. You have two separate sets that you have to comply to both. You can't pick and choose. You don't get to. It's not a case of picking which credit card to use. It's a case of you got two and you gotta comply with both sides of the table.
I tend to agree with that. I think we need to give effect to the entirety of the law, not just one part of it.
Correct.
And I have the difficulty I have is you have a non-conforming use in an area that's not zoned for it, and we want to expand that instead of and I think the whole purpose of the non-conforming use beginning with was to allow established businesses or establishments that were there into the zoning code, but certainly I think there was an intent to limit the expansions or any new development in there.
And there is, and that limit is 50%.
That's in the zoning code, but it doesn't address the other code, the other provisions.
I mean, if it was zoned right, then there'd be something there.
Yes.
If it was zoned correctly, it wouldn't be a non-conforming use.
Well, you indicated that it was non-conforming on both zoning and the physical layout.
Because it doesn't have the proper frontage and the other
Right,
issues.
so Lance, so let's set aside the zoning issue for a second, okay? You still have the land development code that's saying, you know, you've got a park that doesn't comply with these rules, you can't expand it until you comply with the rules. And therein lies the challenge.
Okay.
That's the part that I'm struggling with.
Yes, sir.
I hear you about the zoning. I don't agree with your formula.
I understand.
But I hear you.
Any other comments or questions or a motion on this?
Excuse me one second. I was just going to address a couple more of the comments.
Sure, go ahead.
One gentleman said that the trailer park has brought residents that he's not happy with. I think the trailer park's been there since the 60s, if I'm not mistaken. It's been there a long time. One gentleman spoke about the pond having debris dumped in it. I have no knowledge of debris being dumped in it, and the pond will be expanded in the elevation of the...
I think there's actually, what they may be referring to is there is some cement on one side of the deal, and if I am correct, Steve Joffrion, the actual developer of Cessna, is the one that pushed it in for the existing, for the owner in the past. Not saying Steve did anything wrong, because that's probably what I'd have did with it too. But it looks like just some concrete chunks are pushed in on one side from what I can see, and there's a fire pile on one side of it.
Another gentleman asked about the fence. The fence is proposed all the way around the site. We're not disputing that.
And you'll adjust
When you define
the fence is shown on the plat, and we plan on.
What do you mean by the entirety of the site? The
On
entire
the
parcel?
three sides around the development.
Okay.
Obviously, we wouldn't fence between the existing and the proposed.
Right. Tell me about the trailers that you're already moving in and the electrical work that you're doing.
Yes, sir. Mr. Julio, right after the flood, I went around and I bought a bunch of trailers that were flooded, sent out a crew to totally gut them and have them moved to my place. There is not the first trailer that's been moved there. Well, let me say this. I moved out 2 trailers that were flooded in my park and replaced 2 of those flooded ones with, rehabbed, and hooked them back up. There has been no additional sites. I'm not sure where that gentleman got that information from, but the footprint of the park has not changed one bit. I do have, I think it's 10 trailers, because I had 12 total, 10 that are now stacked up right there in the pasture, 2 of which I think I have sold. The other ones I plan to possibly refurbish. They're all 2005 and up, refurbish and to place in this trailer park. And I don't think there's, as far as I know, I can stack pretty much anything, I'll store anything I want right there in that pasture. But nothing is hooked up to utilities. They're actually all stacked up about as close as you can put them together.
Any permits required for this? What about for the electrical work at a later date? He'll need electrical
No,
permit?
sir. No, not until he actually occupies them.
So to put in the electrical system for the trailer to hook up?
Yes. Needs permit for that, yes.
Any other comments, questions from the commission, or do we have a motion on this matter?
And one last thing, as far as the trespassing, hey, if we have kids in the park, I'll be honest with you, I can't babysit everybody. Do we get people that come in our park every now and then to fish that we don't know where they come from? Yes, but I think that's kind of part of it, as far as, trespassers or anybody going in and doing anything vigilant. I don't think there's any of that.
I'll make a motion to deny.
We have a motion to deny the expansion by Mr. Chasson, a second.
I would ask Mr. Chasson, I think he needs to be more specific in citing his reasons. I want to make sure that we...
I think, Section 178097C1, I think this falls clearly within that section of the code. This is a mobile home park that is being altered and extended, and in order, as I read this code, in order for it to be altered or extended, it has to be in compliance with the rest of the regulations of this ordinance. There's been some testimony that the frontage and some of the other requirements under this code are not currently being met, and as I interpret this, in order to allow the extension or the alteration or extension of the park, those requirements have to be met before we can grant it pursuant to the code. And because it is lacking in frontage and some of the other requirements as previously mentioned, I would move to deny the application at this time.
I would say, I'm going to second your motion, and I'm going to suggest to the applicant that some of the technical requirements you have the ability to cure before you come back. The one that you don't have the ability to cure, you have a venue to address through the Board of Adjustment. And at least you can resolve that and then eliminate those provisions so that you're now a zoning noncompliance. But I'll second your motion.
I have a motion to deny with a second, so a vote in favor, is it a vote in favor of denial of the application? All in favor?
Aye.
Any in opposition? Hearing none, the motion to deny passes. Sorry, gentlemen.
So I guess, and I probably should ask him, but it sounds like not so much a problem with my deals, much of a problem with y'all's wording. That's kind of what we got.
I think Mr. Chasson did a competent job, a good job, better than competent, Aaron, on setting forth the law and the legal requirements, and quite honestly, that's the biggest problem I have right now, is that the law doesn't seem to allow this type of expansion.
All right, should this have been something that should have been discovered before we got to this point today, after several meetings with the parish and going back and forth with the Planning and Zoning Committee?
To my knowledge, the Land Development Code is public record, and anybody can access it, so I can't answer that question.
And like I said, as I indicated in my comment before we voted, you have the ability to cure some of your problems so that those technical non-compliances can be eliminated. You have one that you don't have a physical way, but you have a venue by which you can address that, and then you can come back and then you eliminate that issue, and now your only issue is your non-conforming in zoning.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Mr. Lewis. Thank y'all.
All right, item 9B is, or 10B, excuse me, is the Shady Oaks RV Park Expansion, Louisiana Land Engineering LLC.
Hi, Jeff Cook, Louisiana Land Engineering with developer Mr. Phil Lynn. We're asking for approval to expand mobile home park with 16 RV sites. They currently have 49 sites, and our acreage is well under the 50% rule for nonconformance also. We do meet the frontage requirements. As far as drainage goes, the technical issues, we've proposing a pond, and we'll discharge our pond to below pre-existing conditions, peak flows. There's an existing sewer treatment plant that we plan to connect to as required. And we, per our traffic study, we're generating nine trips in the PM peak hour. We've addressed all the comments from planning and DPW, and we ask for your approval.
Staff?
All comments have been addressed to the satisfaction of the code.
And that includes engineering things, Mr. Shiro?
Yes, I agree with Mr. Cook stated that they have addressed all the requirements of drainage study and both the traffic study.
We'll go ahead and open a public hearing on this. Has anybody signed up to speak on this? All right, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Any comments, questions, or a motion by the commission?
Any issues with the land development code other than not having frontage on a public dedicated right-of-way?
No.
Everything else is?
It's a public road. Yeah, Valmont Roddy is a public road.
Oh, it is? Okay. All right. So no other issues?
No, sir.
Anybody here to speak? No public hearing? I don't know if I can do this, so I'm gonna ask Cody here for guidance. So my math tells me that these 16 are approximately 30% expansion by my math, based on the number, on the use, not the acreage. So I'm going to recommend approval with the condition that this approval equals to 30% of its permissible 50% expansion.
In terms of use?
In terms of use. I'm sorry, but I've always, in all my years.
Isn't that what they proposed, though?
Yeah, but that's the 30% towards the 50 that they will ultimately, in other words, the
I
next
think
time
they
they
only
come
get one,
around.
it's a one-time expansion?
One time, that's
Okay,
it.
in that
Whether
case,
it's
I
5
withdraw
or
that.
49.
Okay, so this is, I make a motion to approve the one-time permissible expansion.
All right, we got a motion by Mr. Doom, a second.
Can I just say what, it's 32%?
I was,
He's rounding
If you
down.
say 30, it's.
I was rounding down.
I think you only get one bite at this, so it is what it is. Okay, we got a motion by Mr. Dumas, a second. Second by Mr. Bishop. All in favor of approval of this expansion?
Aye.
Any in opposition? Hearing none, the motion passes. The expansion is approved, gentlemen. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to item 11A, public hearing to approve, deny the following preliminary plats. Gateway Industrial Park, second filing, Phase 1. Before we start on this, Mr. Fournier, I will
Yes,
give you the floor, sir.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, just for the record, I would like to state that CSRS, our engineering review agency, has recused themselves from participation in the review of this project.
And the record will note that Mr. Shiro has exited the
Yes,
council chambers.
and the reason for that is they are the design, and this is a legacy project that they had prior to them becoming the engineering review agency for us, right? All the project engineering aspects were reviewed internally by parish staff. And I have Mr. Joey Thoreau here to answer any questions related to the engineering aspects of the project.
Okay. Is anybody here on this matter? Yes, sir, come forward.
Good evening, Commissioners. Taylor Gravois, 6767 Perkins Road, representing Superstar Holdings. So, as Mr. Jerome said, this is a legacy project. We've been involved in this project since 2007 or 8, I believe. The project at that time was an industrial development, and as we all know, the economy tanked, and this project was put on hold. So the plat expired, and we're bringing it back before you tonight and asking for approval on a 10-lot second filing for this subdivision. It is adjacent to the existing Gateway Industrial Park, which, if you guys are familiar, it's on the western side of the chemical corridor on Highway 30. Phase 1 of that development was initiated in '98. I think it's just now getting to the point where it's built out. So we're proposing a second filing of 10 lots to continue that industrial subdivision. So we're here before you tonight to ask for preliminary plat approval.
Staff?
All comments are included in your packets as far as the preliminary plat goes. There are also comments, initial comments on the drainage impact study included in your packet as well. The letter from Mr. Primo, the Drainage Department, giving approval or preliminary approval of the drainage impact study. There, additionally, in your packet, there is a memo from DOTD that they received and had reviewed the project and stated that there was no need for traffic impact study because of the minimal impact it would place on the state highway.
We'll go ahead and open a public hearing on this. Has anyone signed up to speak?
No.
Go ahead and close the public hearing on this. Commission, comments, questions, motions?
I'll make a motion to approve.
A motion to approve by Mr. Chasson, second.
I'll second this motion.
Second by Mr. Bishop. All in favor?
Aye.
Any in opposition? Hearing none, the motion passes. The preliminary plat is approved. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And number 12, public hearing to approve or deny the following subdivision final plats, Ascension Commerce Center, fifth filing, Quality Engineering and Surveying, LLC. Mr. Murphy.
Good afternoon. Derek Murphy of Quality Engineering and Surveying, representing the final plat for Ascension Commerce Center, fifth filing. We're asking tonight for approval on the final plat. This is based on a preliminary plat that this commission approved some time ago. Just to keep y'all up to date, we do have a surety bond out here for some issues that we got caught up in the rain. And we do have those turned in, and from my understanding, they've been approved by the parish. The maintenance bonds have been also turned in for review and approval. The punch list items that are left over are minor, and more, the surety bond put out there more than covers any of that. We're asking tonight for approval. This project will quickly bring in some businesses into the Ascension Parish and create some jobs, as we have some things on the horizon. And we ask tonight for approval for this project so it can go forward and that can happen. So please let me know if you have any questions. We're here to answer those, and we hope for approval tonight.
Staff?
Staff has reviewed the project. We have also reviewed the bonds that Mr. Derek Murphy has referred to, and they have been met with our approval. And we recommend, if you approve, we agree.
Thank you. We'll open a public hearing on this. Has anyone signed up to speak? We'll close the public hearing on this. No one having signed up. Do we have comments, questions, or motion by the commission?
I'll make a motion that we approve contingent upon satisfactory execution of performance bonds and completion of any outstanding punch list items.
So those have all been taken care of?
They all been taken care of, and they're part of the surety bond, and everything's fine.
Okay.
Yes.
Second.
A motion to approve by Mr. Dudley, second by Mr. Dumas. All in favor?
Aye.
Any in opposition? Hearing none, the motion passes.
Thank you.
All right, staff report. Item number 13.
Staff has no report.
I have a question, staff.
may
Can you
ask.
update us on, so Parish Council approved a contract for a traffic study?
It's my understanding the council has approved the contract with HNTB to do a traffic study, parish-wide master transportation plan. And that went before the council a couple of meetings ago and was approved.
Any other information? Nothing.
I don't have much more information than that, actually.
Okay, thank you.
Number 14, engineering staff report.
Yes, just to give a tally of where we are on projects, construction and construction plan review. Right now, we have 5 sets of construction plans that are under review, and we have 12 subdivision projects that are actively in construction at this time. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, sir. All right, item number 15, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
By Mr. Chasson, hearing no opposition, the planning meeting is adjourned. We'll take a few-minute recess and return for zoning. Thank you.
Can we make it a